Today, I wanted to share just a couple principles from my years of leading worship that I've also applied to creative projects that I've worked on with other artists that I think have worked well, that I just wanted to share with you that make you a better and more pastoral Christian creative in the end, and really just stewarding your gifts well. Because as a worship leader, like leading worship is more than just about music, right? It's about connection, intentionality, and creating space for God to move in a moment. And I think Christian creators, we want to do that in our creative work as well. By the way, my name's TJ. I've been leading worship and serving in creative ministry for almost 2 decades now, and I run an independent music project called Illumination Project. And I just want to help Christian creatives grow in their craft and character and really curate a culture for the kingdom through the things that they make, which is why I'm sharing these questions. So let's jump right in with the first question. What is important and worth singing about this song or worth pointing out about this project? And the reason I want to kind of start here is because I think it's important to explain and understand the pastoral responsibility that goes into choosing songs in a service or approaching themes for a creative work as a Christian creative. Because our whole hope is to point people to truth and hope in Christ in a service and what we make and what we do. And that should be taken seriously, right? And so when you do this, and when you're taking this understanding of, okay, what's important about this moment, and what is my congregation, or what is my audience, or what are the people that I'm trying to reach walking through in this moment, that I can help better point them to certain truths in what I'm making or in what I'm singing. So a way I've done this in the past, and in fact, the past couple of weeks I've done this, is I just noticed that in the different contexts that I was leading, whether it be my local church or the places that we lead out in different churches, like I just needed to slow things down a bit. Like people were hurried, they were approaching long weekends, holidays, this sort of thing. It came with a lot. And I happened to be leading a song called Same God. And that song talks about the faithfulness of God and the same that he is today, yesterday, and forevermore, right? These are truths that I think I wanted to point out that helped me frame my even call to worship and services, because I said, you know what, my people need to see this. They need to understand this. And I was already putting all that effort into thinking and leading these moments. And a lot of times as Christian creatives, we do that, right? Like we put this intentionality into what we do already. But I think where we fail a little bit is in sharing that and actually teaching that, because it allows people to draw into those moments and actually gain more out of what we make and how we've been trying to point them to these truths. But oftentimes we fail to share it. So my encouragement to you is, as you think about this and as you ask this question, begin to kind of package it in such a way that you can then begin to share it. Whether that's setting up a service or writing a script for maybe a piece of content that you're using to frame a song around, right? Like these questions have multiple applications into how we can think more critically and even have a shepherding lens to the things that we make. In fact, I was talking about this with a resident in our flock community about the way they approach their art and frame it, and even talking about how certain characters are postured and colors that we use. Like these sorts of things are helpful. And for maybe people like me that don't operate in the visual art space and maybe are new to understanding the mechanics and the technical side of that, like that helps me understand it. And as a creative, even more so, I get to lean into those moments and say, wow, like I'm getting so much more out of these truths that you're trying to tell me, because you asked this question at the beginning of your project and then begin to think about them as you promoted them later, talked about them later. Too often we're too rushed to complete a work or get a click or complete a set and pull off a service that we gloss over those mundane moments and those regular things that we do or regular things that we sing. And those normal things, those normal moments can be important opportunities to teach people and draw them deeper into what the Lord might be doing in that local context or in your work for them. So take those moments, ask those questions, and begin to build those frameworks so you can help teach and show other people the deeper truths of the works that you're putting out. And so the next thing we want to ask and understand is, what might be hard about this thing for someone to understand, or maybe if it's a song, someone to sing. And if you're in the singing context, I don't necessarily mean like practically or like a certain key. That can be a conversation for another video or another time. But in this, I more mean that in our work, we should have empathy in our worship and hospitality in our creative work. Like, this doesn't mean that we need to spell out everything we do or necessarily spell out every detail of a service or every detail of a work that we're doing, but consider the emotional, the theological, or the personal challenges that someone might have when they're approaching something that you've put out into the world, or maybe something in a service context, right? These are things that we need to think through. So the way I do this as a worship leader is when I'm singing a song like King of My Heart, a song that I love to sing, but maybe in the context that I'm in, or maybe I've been singing for a week with a group of people, and I just understand that context a little bit more. I understand that bridge of that song, right, when it says, "You're never going to let me down," that might be a hard thing for somebody to sing, or something for a new believer might be hard for them to understand. And so just having that awareness and asking that question at the front end helps me better in the moment be able to offer a word of exhortation or plan for scripture or something like that, right? Like, this helps me better understand a hurdle that somebody might have to get over in order to sing that and appreciate what God's doing in that moment better. As a Christian creator, I've applied this to my songwriting in a similar way, and similar truths that I've worked through and that I feel like the Lord's been doing in my life that I wanted to share with others as well. And that's kind of understanding God's faithfulness and how you following Jesus faithfully and running your race faithfully also allows you to lean in and thrive and become who God's designed you to be. This is something that I've wrestled with for a long time and continue to understand. And I wrote about this in my song called Look. And I kind of posed this question, like, could being faithful be actually thriving as a human, right? That's a huge concept. And as a songwriter, we want to address these concepts and draw people into these truths. But I knew that in order for people to understand and focus on that question, that might be a hard thing for them to get over. And so I tried to use my melodies and kind of my simple lines and simple phrases around that to push all of the focus around that core question. Even the verses, it helped me better structure and form my verses as I was writing those, and even when we were doing co-writing sessions, because we wanted to make them simple, approachable, so that people could understand that chorus a lot better. And so when we begin to ask these questions, again, they inform more than just service planning, but our work as creatives and using our God-given imagination and creativity to steward that well and usher people into these moments, whether they be live in a service as a worship leader, or as a songwriter, or as a painter as you begin to frame your work, or even as a content creator as you put things out into the world and frame them. By the way, if these tips are at all helpful, it's my goal over 2025 to partner with as many creatives as I can. So I started a community called Flock, where I'm partnering with creatives on creative projects one-on-one and sharing resources and tools to help you grow and move your projects along, grow your artist in ministry, and really just establish a sustainable creative life as you grow in your craft and character and just curate a culture for the kingdom. So if that sounds at all interesting to you, I would love to work with you. So click the links below, check out the things below, but let's get on with the video. As we begin to put things out into the world, the final question that we want to ask ourselves, and even I ask myself every time I begin to structure a service as a worship leader, is there someone specific that needs to sing this or hear this? And I think this allows us to focus on a personalization level and even like a spiritual leadership and shepherding part of our creative work and our projects, because it begins to make you think, like, who in my community might need these things or need these words for today, or need this work for this moment. And this allows us to connect stories and our worship to creative projects into what we do. And honestly, this frees you up if you're a worship leader to actually have a little bit more spontaneity in your ministry, because if you're thinking about stories and people in your ministry as you plan it, it'll make you more apt to speak words of truth and encouragement and even plan songs and moments better based on those stories in a localized context. And this even kind of feeds the first question, right? They're kind of two in one, but I think when you begin to assign faces even more, even as a Christian creator, this is huge. If you begin to say, hey, as I write things or as I make things, I want to think with a particular person in mind. It gives you a narrower focus and a way you can serve and begin to think more generatively and more as a gift to your audience, rather than just trying to get a click or get engagement from somebody. It begins to think beyond yourself. A quick note as I pop in here as I'm editing this video, I wanted to just share a quick story that maybe even drives this point a little further for those that are both songwriters and artists and worship leaders, because I know this is a place that I struggled with a long time, is really just having my art and my creation be birthed out of a localized place. So I really just want to offer a word of encouragement that was offered to me by another singer-songwriter artist that was far ahead of me in many, many years experience, and had done this professionally in both sides and done it well to my standard. And I was having a conversation with him, and I was like, hey, how do you balance these two worlds? How do you balance this world of like making sure your art is authentic to who you are and what you're doing, and you're not using your church as a platform, but at the same time you're localizing your worship and the art that you're making in a way that it serves your church? And he said, I just want to make sure my art always has faces. And so that always stuck with me. I've kind of developed this whole concept based off of that quote and that struggle that I've had over the years. And so I hope this is like just as an encouragement, like you're not the only one going through something like this, but rather many artists have gone through it. And in fact, I think when you begin to assign those stories to creative works that you're doing, it gives it more of a lasting impact and a localized impact that will help you even as you promote projects and spread them and share them with people that you're doing life with on a regular basis. So that's that. Back to the video. And it's these questions that think that if you begin to apply them to your creative work as well as your service planning, if you're a worship leader, these three questions, like what is worth singing or pointing out about this project? What might be hard for someone to understand or sing about this thing? Or is there someone specific that you have in mind for this project or this song? It's my hope that you'll begin to kind of implement these into your project or into your next service, because it's my hope as a Christian creative to help you move your projects forward and grow your ministry and gain clarity on building a sustainable creative life, whether you're serving in the church faithfully or doing part-time or full-time creative ministry. I want to help. And so if this resonated with you, share it with someone on your team or another Christian creative in your life. I'm going to be sharing more as a creative on the ground here, both here and in the community. And I'll do my best here to help you cultivate a life dedicated to Jesus and make things and create things to curate a culture for the kingdom. And I will see you in the next video.